the first don't is, I can't stress this enough, is don't make it all about you. By the way, we're going to go through a bunch of don'ts. These don'ts apply to sending messages through LinkedIn. They also can be applied to sending emails through your regular email system. They can also just apply to how you communicate with someone when you're talking to them, whether it's over the phone or in person. But I want you to not make it about you. And salespeople, this is your natural instinct, is to make it about you. And if you stop and think about it, it's easy to do. It's understandable that we all do this. You're a salesperson, you have a product to sell. You probably think about that product every day of the week, not only during the week but also on the weekends. Me, for example, the product I sell is Sales Scripter, a piece of software. I think about Sales Scripter every single day, right? So you think about it. This is like the most important hobby to you. Not only is it something you know a lot about and think a lot about, but it's selling that product is how you get paid. It's how you're able to survive. It's how you're able to provide for your family. It's what enables you to do more things in life. It's actually also extremely rewarding to you just from an achievement standpoint when you sell your product. So this is your hobby, right? And so when you engage with a prospect, you want to talk about your product, and I think it's not a good thing to do. Let me just show you an example. Like I said, this is a message I got today. And I mean, there's a million messages I could show you, but this is one I received today, so I just stuck this in this slide deck. But this is someone I just connected with, and then they follow up with me accepting their connection request with this message. He says, "Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. We are an award-winning full-service digital agency that helps brands drive consumer engagement, blah, blah, blah. For over 12 years, we've been helping, bringing hands together." It goes on. The message was so long, by the way, that this is the little window in LinkedIn, and there was about 2 or 3 pages of this, stuff about him. And this is a message that's all about him. And I would say to not do this because, what I would tell you to do is to make it about the other person. And so let's just say that you're in a personal, social situation. You're eating dinner, whether with a friend or maybe you're someone romantically interested in. Let's say that you like to play golf as a sport. That's a hobby that you have. Let's say that the other person likes to play tennis, right? They don't know anything about golf. They don't know how the rules. They don't know the terminology or anything. Well, let's say that you spend the entire meal talking about golf. How interesting is it going to be for that other person? And you, by the way, don't have any knowledge about tennis, and you don't really care about tennis, but all you do is sit there and talk about golf. Well, do you think that person is going to want to go out to eat with you again, or going to reflect back on that meal as being enjoyable? Probably not. Now, what if you, even knowing you love golf and you don't care about tennis, remember the other person is interested in tennis. Let's say that you spend the entire meal asking questions about the game of tennis and asking them about how they play tennis, where they play, the things they like about it, whatever. Which of those scenarios is going to be more productive? Now, technically, you might enjoy talking about golf more. So, if I were to say which one's going to be more enjoyable for you, probably you're going to want to talk about what you're interested in. But you're a salesperson, and they're the prospect. So, if you want to progress with that relationship and through the process, you want to make it about them. So, the next do's and don'ts. So, don't sound like a salesperson trying to sell something. Let me show you what a salesperson trying to sell something does. Is they typically have some sort of sales pitch, and the salesperson that the sales pitch for that salesperson is they'll talk about the company that they work for. They'll talk about what they sell and what they do and the services and products. They'll talk about how it works and how it was designed or some details about the product. They might talk about how it's priced. And their message is to close the sale. And actually we can go back to the same example. This message is not only all about him, but it's a product pushing message. We are an award-winning full-service digital agency, and he goes into detail about the 12 years, right? This is a product-pushing sales pitch. While you don't see the end of the message here, this message, even knowing, let's say I were to hire him this service from him, I mentioned that the product-pushing pitch tries to close the sale. Certainly, even if I were to express interest in buying from him, of course I don't, purchase over LinkedIn and purchase from this one email. We would have multiple conversations. But what I mean by this message is always trying to close the sale. It's trying to validate, I sell this today. Do you need this? Do you want this? Do you want to purchase this from me? Maybe it's not in that exact interaction, a conversation or email, but the message is all qualifying, do you need what I sell? So it's trying to close the sale. So if we don't want you to sound like a salesperson selling something, you certainly are a salesperson trying to sell something, so what can you do? Well, I want you, and we're on LinkedIn, right? So on LinkedIn, everybody's it's a professional environment, so it's not a big, everybody's working for somebody, whether you're working for yourself or whatever. So you don't have to hide the fact that you're a business person. In fact, that's what I want you to represent yourself as. Instead of representing yourself as a salesperson trying to sell something, I want you to present yourself more as a business person or more as a consultant. And we're not trying to manipulate anything here. You can present yourself as a consultant or business person that has a product that they represent and maybe something that they actually might want to sell at some point, but that's different than being, hey, do you want to buy this from me? I want to get you on the phone so I can talk to you about buying this from me. There's something totally different with being a business person that represents a company, a brand, a service. And so how do you do that? Well, let's go back to this slide. If on the left side is the product pusher, then let's outline what the consultative salesperson looks like. Instead of talking about the product and the service, they talk more about the benefits and the value that the product delivers. They focus more on the pain points that the product helps to resolve. They focus more on asking good questions, and good questions to ask are questions that probe to see if the prospect has any pain. They share customer examples of other people they've helped. If they differ in some sort of way, they highlight that. If they deliver some sort of ROI, they highlight that. And instead of trying to close the sale, which is, do you need what I sell? Are you looking to purchase this? The goal is, hey, let's talk. And so I'll give you some examples of what that looks like. But there's no manipulation or trickery on the right. It's just about communicating more professionally and focusing on, it's like if you're a doctor, right? If you're a doctor and you have medicine, you're not trying to trick people into taking your medicine that don't need it. What you're trying to do is you're trying to diagnose people that have the issue that your medicine fits with, right? And you'll notice, if you go to the doctor and you're not feeling well, they're always trying to figure out what you have, and you might end up where the doctor says, all your tests and everything looks fine, so I don't have anything for you, right? So that's what you want to present yourself as, is a business person and a consultant, and you're looking for the people that need your help, that have the problems that you can help to fix. And we'll apply that to communicating over LinkedIn. If you want more information on going through those steps and building your consultative message, here's a link to a webinar on consultative selling. The next don't and do, let's say, so what I get all the time, I get this every day. In fact, the example I keep showing you is one of these, and it's what I call the instant pitch. And so this is what it looks like. So someone sends an invite to another person to connect. So I open LinkedIn for the day, and I'll have invites there, and I accept them pretty open. I'm a pretty open networker on LinkedIn, so I pretty much accept them, and then immediately right after I accept, and so step 2 is I accept the invite, and immediately after that is I get an email from that person with their product pushing pitch, and this is an example of one of those I got today. So this is someone that I accepted his message when I started my day, and about 30 minutes later, I get this message from him. Now, I don't think that's good for a few reasons. One is, for some of the things we've already talked about, it's all about you because you're trying to push your pitch. You sound like a salesperson. I also think it's kind of rude because you asked me to connect, and now you're trying to sell to me. So LinkedIn is a business networking community, and people go on LinkedIn for different reasons. But when you send me an invite to connect, don't and then you sell to me, I think that there's something rude in that process. Because I don't think you're sending me an invite to connect to be my friend and for us to chit chat socially. I don't think that at all. But maybe we want to share information. Maybe we want to get exposed to each other's networks. Maybe we want to collaborate. But I'm not accepting your connection request for an open invitation for you to sell to me. And oh, by the way, when I accept your connection request, you get my email address and you get access to more information. So it's a little rude, I think, for you to invite someone. It's sort of like it's kind of like if you're a man and you're interested in a woman and you stop a woman on the street and you say, "Do you know where Starbucks is?" And then she's giving you directions and you go, "Oh, can I get your phone number too because I want to ask you out on a date," right? There's something inauthentic there. It's manipulative. It's a little trickery, right? If you want to ask the woman for her number and ask her on a date, get straight to that. Don't trick her by asking her about Starbucks. And so I think that the instant pitch is a little bit of trickery. But you know what? If you want to do that, what I would say, if you want to still sell over and send your product pushing message to people you connect with, and you still want to connect with the people that you want to sell to, I would say do two things. Either delay your message, your product pitch message, meaning if I accept your connection today, send me the product message in a week. Put a delay on it. That way it's not just bam, I'm in your network and now I'm going to sell to you. So add a little delay there, or decrease the amount of pitchiness and product pushiness in your message, and the templates we'll show you here later will definitely be less pitchy. So that could help solve the problem for you. So the next one is, don't put your prospect to work. And I get this all the time where, and so, it's sort of like, and let's go back to, you're asking someone out to be your guest on a date at a restaurant for a meal or in your home or whatever. If you're asking someone, if someone is your guest, you want to be the one that does the work, right? So like if you're inviting someone over to your house for dinner, you cook the dinner. You don't have them cook the dinner, right? So the prospect is your guest, and you're the salesperson. You're trying to earn their business. So you don't want them to do the work throughout the process. Now, that's not to say you don't want them to go through some hoops and throughout the sales process, so that that's a whole nother conversation. But what I mean by, and how I'm applying this to link messages on LinkedIn is I get messages all the time where we connect, and then they send me a very broad question like, what do you do? Or what are you working on? Or what are your biggest challenges? So now imagine that I'm a business owner, business person, and I'm extremely busy, which I am. And that's what your probably ideal prospect is, especially really if you're doing B2B sales. Really everybody that you're trying to sell to or communicate with is busy because most likely they're at work, or it's just easy to assume that people are busy. And can you picture like a business owner who's extremely busy getting a message from someone on LinkedIn saying, what do you do? And then them spending their valuable time explaining what they do in a LinkedIn message to just about a complete stranger? Honestly, if someone would take their valuable time to answer that question, I would tell you that's not a qualified prospect. Because if they have the time to sit there and explain to a complete stranger what they do, then they are not busy enough and successful enough and have enough authority in their organization to purchase your product. There's something wrong with them answering your question. But that's a whole nother conversation. But anyways, so and it's the same thing with what are you working on, what are your challenges. You don't want, even if you don't want someone to sit there and someone is not going to sit there and go, oh well, I'm having challenges with this, I'm having challenges with that, and share all this information for one reason, because it takes time and energy, and also, if someone doesn't know you, they're just going to sit there and share all this information with you about the challenges they're having. So that's not a good way to go, in my own personal opinion. If it's working for you, continue to do it. I personally, when I get those questions, I almost laugh at them. Now, so what you can be is more specific in your questions. Also, by the way, your LinkedIn profile regarding what you do, most LinkedIn profiles have all the answers to what you do and what you're working on. That's what your LinkedIn profile says. It says your experience. I mean, the only reason that you might want to ask that you can legitimately ask that question without it being completely rude, is if their LinkedIn profile is blank. But I'll tell you, mine's not blank, and probably most of the people that people send that question to have the name of their company, their title, and a description, and you're still going to ask them, what do you do? What are you working on? So, sorry, getting into too much detail there. The do on the other side of that would be just to be more specific in your question. So if you want to focus on their challenges, maybe share the challenges that you help to solve with them. For example, so if you're a doctor and you have one thing of medicine and you're only looking for people that fit that medicine, you could give them the symptoms that you are looking for. So, do you have trouble, breathing at night? Do you have trouble sleeping? Do you feel tired during the day? Those are all challenges. So if those are challenges that your medicine helps to solve, give the prospect those challenges. Say, hey, and by the way, actually, time out on that role play. I have an email template that shows challenges, so I'll show you how to do that in your message. But be more specific. The other thing that you could do is, instead of asking what do you do, look at their profile and figure it out for yourself by reading their profile. Moving on. Don't try to sell the product over your LinkedIn message or over your email. Okay, and so let me go back to this message. This is the same message that we keep going back to. This guy is trying to sell the product on the message. He's telling me what they do. He's telling me how it works. He's telling me the hourly rates, and he's trying to sell this. Again, this email doesn't have a button to like buy now or a line for me to sign, right? But he is trying. His sales process is, I'm going to send this message, and either the person's going to agree to move forward and purchase, or the sales process is pretty much going to end. And so don't try to sell the product. What I want you to do is sell the conversation, okay? And that's something very, very different. And let me show you what that looks like. So here are some main steps that most salespeople can go through in B2B selling, really regardless of what you sell, but it can slightly vary depending on your product. But the first step in the process is the initial contact, and that can either be a call, it can be an email, and so we're talking about sending messages to prospects on LinkedIn. So this is that first LinkedIn message, right? Now, when you're sending the message and you're saying, do you need what I sell? Let me know if you need this. Then what you're trying to do is the next box that you're trying to go from step 1 to step 2 is customer purchases, right? Or you send a proposal. And what I would want you to do is have a next step of just a conversation. And then the next step of that might be the presentation. And then the step after that might be the purchase. So maybe with your product, you don't present anything. Well, in step 3 for you might be to provide a quote. Maybe you have a very simple sales process, right? It's that when they want it, you give them a quote, and then they purchase from you. Well, you still have the initial contact, and then there still might be some sort of brief conversation, because they're not just going to not know who you are, and then even if it's a very quick close and quick turnaround sales process, there's still going to be some sort of interaction there. Maybe you never talk to them, but maybe it's email exchanges. And then there's some sort of presentation. So The presentation stage could be a demonstration or a proposal or sending a paperwork or information. But anyways, these are typically the 3 steps you go through. And with LinkedIn messages, you're right here, and what I want your LinkedIn message to focus on is the conversation, right? So anytime you send a LinkedIn message saying, "Do you need this? Are you looking to make a change? I want to schedule a call with you to talk about this." You are skipping the conversation, because what you're doing, the way you're skipping it is because it's all in your close. What you're closing for. When you say, "Do you guys need this?" or "Are you looking to make a change?" your close is trying to close the product. By closing, your close should be for the appointment. So the close, and I'll show you that in some of the email templates that I give you. But instead of saying, do you let me know if you guys need this, or I want to schedule or are you guys looking to make a change? Change it to, are you interested in having a brief conversation? And so I'll give you some examples of what that looks like. But the main important thing, and you can also apply this to your cold calling. When you're cold calling, it's about closing for the conversation. It's not about closing for the sale. So let me give you another example and regarding cold calling, and maybe you can apply that to your LinkedIn messages. And I've used this example before because I think a representative from a payroll provider that we used to use called me up probably a year or two ago, and she said, "Are you guys looking to evaluate payroll providers?" Right? That was her main question to me. Are you looking to make a change? Because I'm using someone else now, right? So that question is closing me for the product. Are you looking to make a change? Right? This is on a cold call, and her message could have been, "Hey, I know you guys you're using someone today. Obviously, you've switched over." Maybe she could ask me who we switched to, which she didn't ask that. But I know you're using someone today, and odds are you're probably not looking today and thinking about making a change. But I'm your rep. I'm new over here. You and I haven't talked. You might make a change at some point. I'm always in your area. I want to pop by and just kind of meet you and have a quick chat, right? So that close right there is closing for the conversation. It's not closing for the service. And when you close on the conversation, objections like, "I'm already using someone, I don't have budget, I'm not looking to make a change, we are not interested," those don't apply. Those objections apply if the close is, "Are you looking to make a change?" I can easily shut that down because I'm not. But if the close is for the conversation, then those really don't apply. The fact that I'm already using someone today is not a valid reason for me not to chat with her for 15 minutes when she's in the neighborhood. And she has reasons of why she can close for the chat, which is, "Haven't met you yet. I'm in your rep in the area. We're doing stuff differently. We've made some changes. I want and so there's lots of reasons there. So you can apply that same thing to your LinkedIn messages. And instead of saying, "Do you guys need this?" say, "I just want, I'm looking just to start the conversation." The next thing is, and some of these next don'ts are kind of minor. They are just things that I've noticed. So maybe some of them you don't. A lot of these you probably don't do. So my thought with these do's and don'ts is, if one of these apply to things that you're currently doing or you might end up doing, just apply the few that apply. Consider the few that apply to you, and some of these might not apply, and some of them are kind of minor. But one thing I've noticed with people that connect is they use. I want you to be authentic. I don't want you to try to trick me into anything, or trick your prospects into anything. I don't want you to try to manipulate anybody. I've said that a few times already. I want you to be authentic. And so one thing that I think is a bit inauthentic is people will often say, "Hey, I read your profile and I found it interesting." And then they will mention that in a long message that is pre-typed out. And they'll stick my company name in a template. In other words, their email will be like 4 paragraphs long, 300 words, and in the first paragraph, my name or something about my company or my title will be in the first paragraph. And what it's obvious is that they just copied my information into a template, but they're telling me that they found my profile interesting. And what that means to me is you're not being honest. You're acting like you read my profile, and now you are just sticking my name in a template that you're sending to 1 million people. So the one thing to kind of apply to that is, if you're gonna like use someone's profile and information, look at their profile and then actually tailor your message to them. Meaning, look at what their current role is, and then have less of a template and more of a tailored message for them. And kind of in line with what I just explained, sending me this template of 4 paragraphs, 300 words. If you're sending messages over LinkedIn, you want them to be as short as possible, right? So, and this applies to any email. So, the longer the message is, the quicker it will be to be deleted. The quicker people will delete it and not read any of your message. And it's just like, I'm just trying to think of an analogy here, but like if you think of like when you were a kid in high school or in school, and the teacher would assign something for you to read, first thing you did was look at how long it was, right? If it was a few pages or a long book or whatever, and think about that feeling when they give you something to read and it's extremely long. Well, your prospect feels that same exact thing when they click on your email, right? So if it's 4 long paragraphs, the prospect's not going to read any of it, right? So what's the better scenario for you? To send an email that you get all your information in that nobody reads, or a shorter email that doesn't have all your information that some people read, right? So that's what I would recommend you. So what I would recommend you is try to use 3 to 4 sentences for your messages on LinkedIn. One thing that I kind of do is I'll look at messages and I'll think, I look at them like when I create an email, I look at each word and sentence the same way I do when I'm packing a suitcase for a trip. Have you ever like put everything out on the bed that you're thinking about taking with you somewhere? Or this is something you might want to try when you travel, is put everything out, all the shirts and outfits that you want and the shoes, and then look at each thing and say, do I really need that? What are the odds of me using that? Is having that worth carrying it around in the suitcase, right? So use that same thing when you're creating email templates. Is, okay, that point there that I included, does that really make my message more powerful? Is that really important? Am I saying the same thing there already more than once? So just something to keep in mind. This is something I get a lot, and I call it the bait and switch. So someone will send me an invite, and they'll actually customize the invite. You know how you can customize an invite to connect? And it'll say something like this: I would love to add you to my network and would love to connect and have you as part of my network, something like that. Then, as soon as I connect, then they send me the instant pitch or the sales pitch or the product pushing pitch. So I call this the would love to connect, or almost maybe would love to network, and then it's I would love to sell to you, right? So, I think that it be just more direct if you're going to sell to them. If you're going to send them the instant pitch, don't tailor your message. I just think it's a little inauthentic, again, a little rude. And so just be a little bit more consistent with your messaging. If you're going to network, have a networking message throughout. If you're going to sell to them and try to make them a customer, communicate that way throughout. This is something I get a lot where on LinkedIn you can create articles, and this happens mostly with LinkedIn articles or LinkedIn blog posts. But I guess could also happen with people creating their own articles on their company website. But I often get emails from people that just wrote an article and they're directing me to their article and not only promoting their article, but they're also asking me to like or share or comment on it. And honestly, as coming from someone who creates a lot of articles and videos, this is a little amateurish, if you ask me. If you create a lot of content, you're not out there asking for likes and you're not asking for people to share. It's a little needy. It's also it's very all about me. And you know, when you create articles, the people that want to read your articles will typically find their way to them through people sharing or internet Google searches or whatnot. And the odds of you sending that to someone on LinkedIn, most like they're not. Most it's basically like, you know, if you here's another example. If you write a book and put it in a bookstore, the people that want to read your book will find your book. If you just randomly write a book on a topic and then walk up to someone and say, "Hey, do you want to buy this book?" The odds that that person wants to read that topic at that particular time and appreciate it is not very likely. And so when you send messages to people with your own articles, it's a little bit all about you. It's selfish, and the odds of it really fitting, being the doctor with the medicine with the person that has that need, is not very likely. I don't know, unless maybe you know what unless you've really isolated the topic of that article with that person's profile in particular. But most of the time, I think when I get that, it's more of a blast that they're sending it out to like their whole contact list. But anyways, here's another thought. If you do that, or even if you don't do that, here's something to think about, is to send articles written by other people more as you being, instead of you being a self-promoter, which is, again, that person sitting at the dinner table talking about golf, which is what they love, and you don't love golf. So instead of being a self-promoter, share other people's information, which totally changes the dynamic. It makes you an information sharer, someone who's looking to help. So it's something that you might want to consider with your LinkedIn messages. So this happens to me all the time. I'll accept someone's invitation to connect, and then I start getting their email marketing to my email account for the email address that's in my LinkedIn profile. So what they're doing is, once they connect, then they get my email address, which, by the way, for me, and I think this is probably for half the people on LinkedIn, it's their personal email address. My email address has always been my Gmail email on LinkedIn. And so I start getting these business marketing emails into my Gmail account, which is just more annoying than anything else. Just because someone accepts your LinkedIn connection request doesn't mean they're opting in to your email marketing for your company. And those are two different things. And so it's rude, and I don't think it's a good way to go. I mean, most of the time when this does happen, there's usually an unsubscribe button, which is good at least, but sometimes there's not. So what I would recommend is, if you have an email marketing system that you want to get the people that you come across on LinkedIn over to, there's a couple things. One is, engage with them before you add them to your system. So this might be, let me exchange some messages on LinkedIn, which is, again, we're getting close to me showing the templates to you. It's, I think, in the next slide or two. But so engage with some messages, or wait till you have a conversation with them, or find a way to get them to opt into your list on their own. Meaning, maybe you have, like for us, for example, we have ebooks on our website, and if you want to download our ebooks, you end up on our email marketing list. So you could create some sort of opt-in call to action and promote that on LinkedIn through, you know, a status share, or maybe send it out to some people, and as an option for them to